Once upon a time, in an old and snowy land, there lived a beautiful queen who was sewing a gown by the window of her palace. She pricked her finger with a needle, and 3 drops of blood fell on the snow. Looking at the bright red blood on the white snow, the queen wished for a child with hair as black as ebony, skin as white as snow, and lips as red as blood. Shortly after, the queen gave birth to a girl just like she wished and named her Snow White. Sadly, the queen became very ill and passed away, leaving the king and Snow White alone in the big palace. The king remarried a beautiful but vain woman who obsessed over her beauty and possessed a magic mirror. Every day she asked it, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And every day the mirror answered, "You are." But when Snow White turned 7, the mirror responded, "You are beautiful, but Snow White is the fairest of them all." The queen was shocked and filled with jealousy and hatred for Snow White. She decided to kill her. The queen ordered her huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her, bringing back her heart and liver as proof. The huntsman took Snow White into the forest, but when they reached the middle, he told her of the queen's orders. Begging for her life, Snow White's tears softened the huntsman's heart, and he let her go, advising her never to return to the castle. To deceive the queen, he killed a deer and presented its heart and liver instead. The queen was delighted and rewarded the huntsman handsomely. Lost and frightened, Snow White wandered through the forest until she stumbled upon a small cottage. Hungry and tired, she entered and found a table set with food for 7. She ate a little from each plate and then went to the bedroom, falling asleep on one of the beds. This cottage belonged to 7 dwarfs who worked all day and returned at night. They found Snow White sleeping and listened to her sad story in the morning. Feeling sympathy for her, they allowed her to stay. Back at the palace, the queen questioned her mirror again. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" It replied, "Snow White, who lives with the dwarfs in the forest, is the fairest." Angered, the queen disguised herself as an old woman and prepared a poisoned apple. She went to the dwarf's cottage and gave Snow White the apple. Delighted, Snow White took a bite and fell to the ground, the poison taking its effect. The queen left, believing Snow White to be dead. When the dwarfs returned, they found her lifeless and placed her in a glass coffin, mourning their loss. One day, a prince came by the cottage and learned of Snow White's tale. Falling in love with her beauty, he asked to take the glass coffin to his castle. As the coffin was moved, the poisoned apple piece dislodged from Snow White's throat, and she awoke. Overjoyed, the prince, the dwarfs, and Snow White rejoiced. They took Snow White back to her father's castle, where she recounted her tale, and they were reunited. Before marrying the prince, the queen, in another land, asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" It answered, "Snow White is the fairest." In a rage, the queen shattered the mirror, and a splinter struck her, causing her death. Snow White and the prince wed, with the 7 dwarfs in attendance, and they lived happily ever after.